Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tagar. Welcome to our 333rd Visions, Voices, and Very Good Times episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. We are so glad that you're here. Hit us up on those socials at Mando_Vision, Twitter/X and Insta. Hit me up at Mandovision at Blue Sky, and you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. Bucketheads, we are back for another exciting installment of our Star Wars Rebels rewatch series. We're really into a good episode with this week's episode. Like we're connecting the dots. We're getting to the big stuff. We're laying tracks for mythology. We're really building towards some really epic stuff, and this episode really lays a lot of the groundwork for the back half of this third season of Rebels, which I think is just stellar stuff. So we're connecting some dots to some earlier episodes in the season. Obviously, Maul is back for this one, and he's still looking for KENOBI. He needs to find the KENOBI. And ever since the incident with the holocrons, where Maul tried to unite the Jedi and the Sith holocrons to glean the Force to get his answers, Ezra has been linked to Maul, and that sort of manifests itself very severely in this episode, and it begins is sort of what kicks things off into the main plot for our story, our adventure this week. So yeah, big Jedi stuff, big Sith stuff, and of course, the quest for KENOBI continues for one Mr. Maul. So let's go ahead. I think it's just fine if we just dive into the episode. So let's go ahead and get our particulars out of the way for this week's episode. This is Star Wars Rebels, Season 3, Episode 11, Visions and Voices. Original air date December 10th, 2016. The episode, as you may know, is written, directed. It's got people on it. Directed by Bosco NG, written by Brent Friedman. Our primary cast for this week, excuse me, as I get a little choked up there on my words. Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger. Vanessa Marshall is Harrison Dula. Freddie Prinze Jr. is Kanan Jarrus. Tia Shakar is Sabine Wren. Steve Blum is Zeb Aurelios. Dave Filoni is Chopper. Steven Stanton is AP5. Tom Baker is the Bendu. Sam Witwer is Maul. Meredith Salinger is the Night Sister Ghost. Kanan? Ghost, because, yeah, okay. Hold on. When I read that name, it sounded weird, but I was like, okay, now I get it. And Anna Graves is Night Sister Ghost Sabine. All right, we'll talk about that as we get into it a little bit later on in our watch. So let's go ahead and talk about the plot. Haunted by visions of Maul, Ezra journeys across the galaxy to participate in a strange ritual which will sever his connection to the old master. Seems like a little bit of a generous plot description, but I think it's fair enough. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the episode proper. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets, and let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
So the episode, we open up, we're back at Chopper Base on Atollon, and we are making plans. Hera is leading a meeting and planning for some reconnaissance on Lothal so they can figure out what they're going to do about the Imperial factory on the planet and how best to destroy it. Ezra is going to be placed in charge of the mission. It's his home planet. He's been showing his strong leadership capabilities. But as the briefing is unfolding, he is seeing visions of Darth Maul around the base in various areas, and it's distracting him, and everyone's noticing how distracted he's becoming by seeing visions of Darth Maul running around the base and whispering messages into his ear from around. And of course, we know that Maul's not really there, that it is some sort of Force vision issue, and we will find out it stems from the link that they have established between each other while attempting to merge the Jedi and the Sith holocrons back at the beginning of season 3. Because of that link is still there, and Maul is reaching out and saying like, "Hey, dude, you have something that I need, and I have something that you need." And we will find out eventually that, again, they each sort of got pieces that each other wanted, but they don't have a clear vision. So this all sort of derails the reconnaissance mission to Lothal to scope out the base, all right? At least as far as Ezra's participation in it. Hera does take off in the Ghost, and I assume go to do some recon work around Lothal, while Sabine and Kanan stay behind to help Ezra. So Kanan takes Ezra to the Bendu so that they can kind of work this out, talk about it. The Bendu doesn't drop a lot of like super helpful information, just like, aha, I see, yes, and, a little warning of like, yeah, when you try to do those things, bad things can happen, fallout. And then he's like, the big revelation is that the Bendu says, well, then don't look behind you if you don't want to see more visions of Maul, because, hey, right, he's right there. And yes, it is, in fact, really Darth Maul this time. No more visions, no more hallucinations, no more Ezra trying to kill rebels who he thinks are Maul, but his mind's playing tricks on him. And Maul reveals that because of the link, as we said, they know things about each other that they probably shouldn't. Ezra doesn't really seem to know much about Maul necessarily. Like, he doesn't know where Maul's been hiding out or any of that stuff, but Maul knows where Ezra's been hanging out. And I still like the fact that Ezra is being called, his apprentice. Maul's still calling Ezra his apprentice, and all these things, even though Ezra's like not having it. I just sort of like it. I just sort of like that that's sort of the dynamic. That's sort of the way that, Maul twists the knife a little bit every time he sees him. So good stuff on that front, and I really like it. What we come to find out is what Maul says is what Maul says is that, hey, when we did that thing, I learned some stuff that you want to know, and you learned some stuff that I want to know. So we need to get together and kind of like, put our vision together and get the stuff that we need out of it. So what does that mean? Where are they going to go? Maul's light on details. And Kanan, I think, had been suspicious of this sort of thing happening from the jump, because earlier on he has Sabine put a tracking device in Ezra's comm unit, like the one he wears around his wrist, so that they can follow his movements. So I think Kanan very much anticipated this sort of thing happening. So when Maul goes off with Ezra in an effort to separate their visions from each other, to break their sort of a bond and attachment with each other, Kanan's able to follow in the Phantom with Sabine. So where are we going? Well, Ezra and Maul arrive on Dathomir. So Dathomir, we find out that Dathomir has been where Maul has been hanging out. The ghosts of his people are surrounding him. There is nobody on Dathomir. He alludes to the slaughter, the massacre of the Night Sisters, and but he does tell stories about how they were very capable, powerful force wielders that the Empire feared. Sidious feared the Night Sisters, and so interesting to see some reverence from Maul about the sisters. And again, remember how strongly the Night Sisters played a role in bringing him back and kind of giving him back his sanity, and kind of launching him on his quests to kind of sort of go against Sidious from the shadows. So interesting stuff on that front. And they're going to use Night Sister magic to kind of come together and separate what they learned from the holocrons. And of course, what Maul's not telling is that there's always a price to be paid when you dabble with the Night Sister magic. But he's going to keep that to himself till later. What we do get to go through is Maul's like lair, right? We get to see like artifacts from his past and how he speaks about it as how these are reminders of when his power was almost near absolute. When Maul was at his peak, at his prime, at the top of his game. So seeing like those little mementos and trinkets, the heads of battle droids, the heads of Mandalorian helmets and things like that. And then interestingly enough is a sort of it's almost like a shrine in a sense to the Duchess Satine, who he killed in order to get to Kenobi, right? Like he guts her, kills her in order to anger and upset Obi-Wan Kenobi, the sort of love of Obi-Wan's life, as we have discussed in the past. And this sort of visage of her on the walls with like the eyes sort of crossed out, and it's very unique and very interesting, and it's an odd sort of reminder of just how far his hatred for Kenobi goes. So it is neat to see that. It's interesting to see that. It sort of shows a little bit more of the psychology of Maul and just how deeply scarred and affected he is by Kenobi, that he sort of has like this little, like I said, like a little shrine to the Duchess Satine. Very, very interesting. And of course, at the front, at the base of this little shrine, what do we see but the hilt of the Darksaber? And this is that moment where the Darksaber comes back into play, and we're just like, ooh, I bet that's going to have something fun to do later on. And of course, Maul even alludes to that fact. He sort of teases that fact that if Ezra's little Mandalorian friend were here, she would know exactly what it is and what it represents and what it means. So seeing that there at that point is like super, super neat. So as this is going on, Kanan and Sabine arrive on Dathomir as well, and they begin to make their way into the cave, just as Ezra and Maul are drinking their potion to complete the spell so they can ask their questions of the Force and sort of like break that bond that they have by sort of realigning their mental energies, I suppose is a good way to put it. So they drink the juice, they got the green glowy eyes. Maul asks the question, where is he? We know who he is. And, Ezra does what he wants to know. He wants to know how to destroy the Sith. Well, turns out they both get the same answer. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And while they don't get the exact location, they know it's a desert world with twin suns. I bet you and I know which planet that is. Now, let's put a pin in that, because that part doesn't really come into play until later. But this is when Sabine and Kanan get closer into the room, just as the spell comes to its completion. And then Maul is like, oh yeah, and by the way, now's the time to pay the price. So like these ghosts are going to try and consume our flesh. And so Ezra's not real stoked that part of things was skipped over in the process of laying out the plan here. But of course, now that Kanan and Sabine are there, they get taken over by the ghosts. And Ezra won't fight his friends. He doesn't want them to destroy him, so he won't let Maul kill them either. But there is a limit to how far the ghosts can go, and it's when they leave the cave, because they are protected by they're like sort of attached, anchored to it at that altar, the big altar there where the spell had to be performed at. That's why they're in that cave. I think I neglected to mention that initially, but big giant glowy altar of the Night Sisters. And that's where all these Night Sister spirits are channeled at, where they're anchored to, and that is the limit of their power. Basically, is like in that cave to that altar. So what Ezra's going to do once Maul decides to leave, because, what's he care? He's got the information that he wants. Time to find that planet with the twin suns. And Maul knows what it is. Maul says the line. He's like, of course, it'll end where it began. And so he's off to Tatooine. Ezra still isn't going to be able to figure that out just yet. He's got bigger fish to fry right now anyways. But it's all about getting Sabine, getting Kanan out of the cave, and then forcing the spirits out of there. And then, guess what? Destroy that altar. Smash it. Smash that altar. And so he does. So they reset the ghosts. The spirits are back in there, and then sort of like, I don't know if they're like sort of exorcised out of the altar after he attacks it with the lightsaber, but it definitely puts them back in their place, if nothing else. And then we suss out the information that, Obi-Wan Kenobi's the key. Kanan's sort of in disbelief that Obi-Wan's still alive, but like, hey, why not? They've come across other Jedi who've been hiding out, laying low. So it's on to find Master Kenobi before Maul can get to him. This is where the timeline gets a little bit fuzzy for me, because there are a lot of episodes coming up between now and when we get to the Twin Suns episode, which is definitely a big deal. And so what I can't remember though is if Maul is seen again at some point and he's like been sidetracked on his quest to Tatooine, or if the timeline just gets a little jumbly and we have to allow for some plot conveniences, because we got a big 2-part episode next week and then several more big episodes in between before we get back to sort of this storyline. So that's where my memory's a little fuzzy at. So I am excited and really fired up to watch these next bunch of episodes because, again, like we are really building to some big stuff here as far as like our mythology goes for Jedi and Sith stuff, but also for Lothal and Thrawn and what's going on with the Rebellion. So we're in a really exciting pivotal point with the series. And like I've said before, like I've alluded to, the runway here to get to the Twin Suns episode, which I believe is episode 20 of this season, it's great runway, and it leads to what might be the finest half an hour of Star Wars television ever. It might be the best thing ever that Star Wars has ever done, in my opinion. It could be the pinnacle of Star Wars animation for sure, 100,000%. It's hard to say if I like that particular episode more than anything I've seen from Andor, because Andor just seems to hit a little bit differently. But as far as Jedi Sith stuff goes, as far as the mythology of the Skywalker saga, of everything from the cinematic Star Wars universe, Twin Suns is phenomenal, and I can't wait to get to it. So again, I'm a little concerned about the timeline here a little bit, but hey, that's why we're doing this rewatch, right? So we can get to see the steps along the way. You know, what is it that slows Kanan and Ezra down from finding Kenobi faster, or is there anything that slows Maul down from reaching Tatooine sooner than his opponents? It's good stuff, and I'm really looking forward to getting into that avenue of things. This episode, big fan of it. It's 8.5 buckets because it just ties a lot of things together, and it begins to really give us that runway, give us that track that takes us to one of the finest moments of Star Wars. And I am here for it. I'm down for it. It's good stuff. So 8.5 buckets, quality entertainment. And I think that's that for the episode, my friends. So we'll be back next week. There hasn't been any breaking Star Wars news just yet. I'm sure that'll happen soon, and we will have bonus episodes to cover that when those things occur. Otherwise, let's just keep going ahead. I've been reading the comics, been trying to read some of the books, but the books I'm not going to lie, I'm in a little bit of a lull with the books at the moment. I haven't finished the High Republic series just yet. I needed a little bit of a breather on those. I can't just read Star Wars, all day, every day. Unfortunately, I need to cleanse the palate and read some other stuff in between. And so right now, I have put down the High Republic books just to kind of give myself a little bit of a mental break from it. But we're we're reading the comics. And like I maybe mentioned last week, I'm not really enjoying this current era of them that much. The Kylo Ren book's probably the most interesting, but even that book's not without its hiccups. But we'll see if anything shakes loose. I am hopeful that the Han and Chewbacca comic will be good. It is set in the sequel trilogy era, so we'll see. I have some problems with that version of Han Solo, but we'll see. I'm waiting for a few more issues to come out so I can read like 5 or 6 of them together and kind of get a good impression on the series. Otherwise, hey, Bucketheads, go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, understanding, and just nice. Just go out there and be nice people. That's all we can ask of each other. It's a mean world, and if we can show little acts of kindness to each other, that can only help our days get a little bit better, even if momentarily. All right, Bucketheads, thank you for all the support. You are kind and amazing and wonderful people. I'll be back next week for another exciting installment of the Mandovision podcast. I am your host, Nerd Guy Tom. Follow us on the socials at Mando_Vision, Twitter/X and Insta, Mandovision at Blue Sky. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And, hey, if you're on that Apple podcast, sweet 5-star reviews. So insanely helpful. All right, dear friends, take care. We'll be back next week. And remember, this podcast only ends one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.